maybe.
Okay.
We'll find out.
Intro.
Live now.
Yay!
Intro.
Well, it's
Welcome to
been a
Lasers.
while.
It has. Welcome to Lasers, Dragons, and Keyboards. I'm
Hopefully you can
Liberty
actually hear
Spidel.
us. My computer forgot
Um,
all the streaming settings. I swear I had it set
I'm
up.
Josh Hart.
Yeah, we're live, Aaron, so you do need to introduce
Yay!
yourself.
I'm Aaron DeMott.
We
I
think.
think, and I think I have this set up properly. Maybe
Well, I
we'll find
unmuted
out.
it for a second and it worked, so we're good.
Okay.
Uh,
Woo.
Today we have author and friend of the show, Steve Razza. He is the author of the Face of the Deep books, the Interstice, urban fantasy superhero novels, and with more to come. Welcome, Steve.
Thanks for having me, guys. Good to be here.
Yeah.
Good to have you. So, why don't you go ahead and tell us a little bit about yourself?
Sure. Right now I'm a librarian living out in Wyoming. I was raised on the other side of the country in New Jersey, wound up in Boston and Maine in between there, following my newspaper career working for small community newspapers. So I've had that background and the library background for, the past 20-ish years or something like that. Um, when I'm not writing books, I'm binge watching slightly older TV shows like Burn Notice, especially lately. We've been
Ooh,
rewatching.
that's a good one.
That's a good
Just
show.
amazing because Chuck Finley. Just all I got to say
Oh, yeah.
about that. Um, Making my way to see movies like Dune, which was fantastic, and usually playing Minecraft with my teenage boys who are still, they've gone off and done their own gaming stuff lately, but when it comes to the oldies but goodies, we usually get back on Minecraft every time they have a new update and add something new. We're just like, oh, hey, let's go check this out. So, enjoying those
Nothing
kind
wrong
of
with
things.
that.
And, writing and reading and going to work and those kind of things.
So
I
no
mean, they're
spare
all
time is what
important.
you're saying.
Yeah, basically.
So, how does your job as a librarian intersect with your writing career, or does it?
Um, well, it intersected a little more when my previous boss, the director there, was in charge because she liked all my books. And so she made sure that we always had them in the library. It was always good about that. She would encourage me to have book signings there and things of that sort. Um, do donations when we had our library auction as like a fundraiser and things like that. So she was good, very supportive that way about it. As for intersecting, it's kind of cheating because I get to see all these new books and new trends and things coming through that adults and teens and things are reading. I'm like, oh, those are cool ideas. Oh, that's a neat idea. Oh, I like that cover. Oh, this is a neat design element. It's kind of fun that way. Not just reading about them, but also seeing the physical book show up and seeing how people, experiment with the story or, like I said, with layout and things like that. Those technical aspects too. So I
Hmm.
really enjoy that aspect. I think it's useful that way.
Okay.
And it's
Aaron.
also nice. It's also nice to have that job because we have late in the morning hours to later in the evening hours to try to accommodate people's schedules after work, and things. So that means in the morning I get some writing time before I come in,
Yeah.
Hey,
mixed
that's
among
great.
mixed among other errands and things like that. So that helps out that way.
Yeah. All right, Aaron, you can take the next one.
I'm still trying to find our question list.
It's in the admin discussion on
Yeah, I
Discord.
saw. Hello, what's it doing? Strange things are happening. What's happening?
Uh-oh.
All right,
Doesn't sound good.
hang on a minute. I hit the wrong button somewhere.
Which
What
dimension are
about
we in
Um,
now?
originals?
now you're showing us your screen.
All right, what happened? What's happening? All right,
We're suffering a dimensional malfunction.
Why did it do
It's not
that?
good.
Okay, I don't know why it did that.
Do you have screen share on?
Yeah, and I hit the wrong button that loaded the wrong thing.
That would
Okay,
be bad.
so I have no idea where those question lists are then.
It's okay. We'll take over.
Yeah, you might
I,
want to do that. 'Cause
And you can just jump on when you feel like it.
yeah, sure.
Um, so, Steve, you won an award at the Realmakers this year in St. Louis. All three of us were with you at the same table, and we're watching your visible reactions. But I want to know what was going through your head when you figured out you were the winner. Because it was really cool, because Scott Miner was reading sections from the winning books,
Yeah.
and
Well, I mean, the initial reactions are things I can't say here, so I won't.
ooh,
I think I may have actually blurted one of those out at the table, kind of under my breath, but in a good way. Like in a good way, you know.
Yeah.
PG-13, but in a good way. Yeah, it was funny because I remember going into it. You know, I had Mercury Out Cold. The novella was also nominated in the novella category, and I was looking at who was in those different categories and going, I don't know if I have much of a chance in the novel one. You know, because there's really good writers, a whole bunch in there in that category. I'm like, yeah, you know, the nominated is good there, and I was like, well, maybe the novella would do better. I don't know, you know. And so when he gets to that and he's starts reading, it just hit me right away because, you know, I picked that scene specifically because it wasn't an actiony scene. It was just interaction between the characters. And he starts reading about how they had, it's first person, they start talking about how they're headed downstairs in the elevator. I was like, no, no way. Wait, what? No, that can't be right. That's it, isn't it? And I was almost asking myself, like, did I hear that right? And then I'm like, well, maybe if you stop talking in your head and shut up, you could listen to what Scott's saying and figure out the rest of the passage. I'm like, oh yeah, this is it. So that was it. It was a very nice surprise. You know, I was really kind of just floored. And yeah,
yeah,
like I said, if my
yeah.
internal monologue had shut off fast enough, I would have gotten more of the quote in my head at the time. Yeah.
Yeah. So not
Oh, and of
only
course, you
is
know, and of
go
course,
ahead.
sorry to interrupt, but of course, I didn't have any speech planned or anything. So they're like, and I don't remember who it was, Josh. I don't remember if it was you or JJ or somebody was like, do you got something to say? And I'm like, no, I don't know. I don't know what I'm gonna
I
say.
remember that.
alright,
So
I figured out what
Oh,
happened
fun.
with the question list. You guys posted
that's
it in
good.
Discord, so if I want to view it on the computer, I have to view that Discord channel, but I can't do that and see everybody's face at the same time. So
You
I got
have
it
a
pulled up.
phone,
So I got
right?
it pulled up on the phone now. I'm like, yeah,
Good
okay.
job.
There you go. All right. So yeah, not only is Steve an excellent author, he's an award-winning author.
Yeah,
Ooh,
So
got the
something
gold
we all
sticker and
aspire
everything.
to.
yeah. All right, you want to take the next question down, Aaron?
Sure. Let's see, New York Times bestselling author Craig Johnson lives not too far from you, and my phone says he was acquainted with you. Has he influenced your writing at all, or given you suggestions or anything, or talked to him much, or?
Don't really see him much just because he's at that level now where he travels a ton. You're more often than not to see pictures of him on Facebook sleeping in an airport with his cowboy hat pulled down over his face, which is just
I
great because
saw
he'll
that
like sprawl.
yesterday.
Did you? Yeah. See, he just
I
sprawls
did.
out. He's fun like that. I've heard that he's big in France. Like no joke, he's won
Mm.
multiple awards from the
Huh.
French for his novels. Um, so you know we don't really interact too much. I've never really sought him out for writing advice just because I don't. If I were him, I don't know if I would like that. You know what I mean? Like I don't know if I'd want. I mean, just want people coming up to you necessarily because like, oh well, that's the famous guy, so go bug him about writing advice. But I
Yeah.
have read his books, and if it has had influence, I mean, I've read some of his books, not the whole series. If it has had influence, I'd probably say it's mostly in the vein of the dialogue, because he writes really good
Mhm.
dialogue between his
He
characters.
does.
And so, the books that I've read, I wouldn't say that I've really taken any notes from it, but it's stuck in my head. So, that's something that's helpful is and that I do with any book that I read that's really good, is that the dialogue kind of sticks with me from how they do those kind of things. So I really enjoyed that. Yeah, I know it's always great to see him around. He comes to our library events and things sometimes, so that's always cool to see too. So
It's not just me, yay!
right, there's other writers out here.
I'm
Yeah, and it's kind of
specifically the
nice to be able
kids
to
in the
tell people.
background, but yeah.
Right. Well, it's nice to do it too, because we've got you don't really think of Wyoming as a centerpiece for authors, but we've got Craig Johnson out here, and then further down the southern part of the state is C.J. Box, of course. Lives out down that area. My mother-in-law's met him a few times. She calls him Chuck. So, because that's what he prefers to be called in person when he's hanging out down there. Apparently, in the small.
Yeah.
He's got a house down in that small town on the southern border where my mother-in-law lives, where my wife grew up. So,
For some
cool.
reason, I keep expecting Wyoming to churn out a lot of Western authors.
Well,
it's
I mean-
funny. I mean, modern Western authors, yeah, but not so much the traditional Western authors. I know a few people both around here and across the state who are authors, and they write different kinds of things. Like there's a guy who lives in town here, Gene Galliano, who writes children's books, and he's a retired school teacher, and he was even, well, I think he's still the poet laureate for the state, because the states they appoint their own poet laureates for a certain amount of time for several years before they vote for a new one and stuff like that. So
That's really cool.
he's well known around here, especially.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I know my cousin up there has done some cover art for some artists up there.
Oh, good.
I saw proof of one time, and it was like huge, and it was like a cowboy with like a really fancy gun. I don't know how.
Interesting.
It is really, yeah, like a big rifle and stuff. And I don't know who the author is, but it's like, that is really cool. So, and he's got a cool artistic style too. But that's really neat.
Oh, very nice.
But,
that's cool.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So go ahead, Liberty.
Okay, so you've been working this year with Daniel Gibbs, correct?
Yes. Yep.
So, what's it like working with a collaborator in your instance?
Well, in working with Dan, it's really interesting because the story universe I'm writing in is all his. He's done, it's his Echoes of War series and Breach of Faith, I think is the other series. I might be mispronouncing that one or misspeaking that one. But it's all set in the same story universe, far future, military sci-fi, space opera feel to it. So the nice part is that I didn't have to create most of that from scratch. The universe is already in place, all the technology is in place. And so I can add little things to it here and there, but I don't got to worry about the world building as much as if it was my own project,
Right.
And so far, it's pretty neat because he has specific things he wants to happen and a specific direction the story has to go or the series has to go, I should say, and then specific things that happen to the characters that aren't mine that I'm using. So like the president of this coalition of planets and some of the major figures, he knows what he wants to have happen with them, especially as he looks ahead to other series. So I keep that in mind. But really, I've got quite a bit of freedom with what I do with my main characters, the team of spies that I've put together. And a good amount of freedom, too, with the storyline. Like, the general gist of each book, we talk about, and he signs off, and I was like, yeah, do that, and, but maybe one or two things, don't do this, or have it go this way. But when it comes to just plotting out the book, I pretty much can just do it,
Yeah.
Cool.
We get along really well. I think we seem to have similar personalities when it comes to how we view different things and how we view working on these kind of projects. So yeah, it's working out really well.
Cool.
Nice.
So do you think this is something you do again?
Probably. I mean, I'd like to do some more stuff with him and or for him. I don't know how that'll work out in the future, but for this series that we're doing right now, Deception Fleet, I am going to stop after book 6 is done because that's a lot of stuff for 1 year. I need to take a break a little bit. It's kind of a breakneck pace, and it's like that was fun to try, but probably not something I'm going to be doing as if I'm still at a normal full-time job most of the time. It's a little much.
That's
Not to say it hasn't
understandable.
been not to say it hasn't been fun because I've really enjoyed it, but
Yeah. Well, I
Yeah.
mean, I think working with a collaborator would be an interesting experiment, but there's so many different ways you can almost just make it fit for how you guys work. You've obviously found a system that's worked for you guys, so.
yeah, and it has worked pretty well. That was part of what I kind of talked to him about when we were first looking at it. Was like, what are your expectations from me? What should I expect from you? Um, how nitpicky are we going to be on each other's stuff or whatever? And so far, it's really not nitpicky. I mean, the main thing is that he's the one with the military background, so terminology,
Yeah.
how people would act, those kind of things he corrects, which is great because then I can look back at that and say, okay, this is the right way to do this, and kind of pick up on those things as I go.
Mhm.
Yeah. So now, you've written in all sorts of genres. Do you want to talk about, a little bit more about the different genres you've written in, and like, do you have a favorite, that sort of thing?
Well, I mean, probably the urban fantasy type superhero ones for Mercury are my favorite, just because it sounds kind of lazy, but because it's the easiest. when we talk about
Get
world
used to
building
those
and stuff,
characters and stuff, and
yeah, get used to the character. Well, and also because, like I told somebody else, when you have a character in a sci-fi or fantasy book, especially like a far future sci-fi one, and you have them even go outside to do something or go somewhere, you have to stop and think a little bit about, okay, in this story world, what's the city like? What's the the environment, the technology, blah 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 blah. But in the Mercury ones, is like if he goes down the street talking with somebody to go get a sandwich, it's like, okay, he's in a city, he's walking down a sidewalk. There's a sandwich place. You don't have to worry about, maybe talk a little bit about the weather, but you don't have to worry about the technological or background and things like
Hmm.
that because you live in that same era. So it's easy
Right.
to think about your phone and your sunglasses and all those kind of things. But
I like doing the anime thing when renaming those. Go to the thesaurus and all right, so subway. What's another word for a sub? And go to the thesaurus for
right,
way and mash something. I think that's fun anyway for that kind of thing.
world building that way is a lot of fun. I do enjoy that. And so I'm probably I like doing the sci-fi and space opera stuff too. It just takes me longer because it's I got to slow down and feel a little more methodical about it because um, yeah, I tend to focus a lot on the background details too, which is again something different with doing this project with Dan Gibbs because it's military sci-fi, but the technical aspects aren't as, I don't want to say overwhelming. Um, you don't have to dwell on them as much. It's more about what the
Mhm.
characters are doing and the action that takes place and the politics and things like that.
Yeah.
That's of more importance in the story than the technology aspect. Whereas some of the other books I've done, like the technology is heavier, so it's it absorbs more of the narrative, I guess you could say. Yeah.
Okay. So kind of as a follow-up to that, uh, I know that with some of your earlier works, like Face of the Deep and that sort of thing, it had a lot more overt uh, faith overtones,
Yeah.
and then you've played with that with a lot of your works, where like with the Mercury verse, it's there obviously, but it's
Sure.
it's different. Have you found it's easier to write uh, overtly in that regard, or just kind of make mention occasionally?
That's a good question. It really depends on the character for me, and that's why they're different. If more overt versus less overt really depends on what the character is like versus, and also somewhat what the story itself is about. So, like with the Face of the Deep one, the whole focus of the story is finding that illegal Bible in the wreckage and everything that's comes out from that. So you have some very overtly religious characters who are interested in that and some who are not. And so it was, in that respect, it was easy for me to focus on the characters because I knew, okay, this is their goal of the story, this is the kind of person they are. Versus with the Mercury ones, you got a mixture of people who, of faith or not, and the focus is really more on the supernatural elements. And so, yeah, I mean, really, it does come to the character. As for easy or not easy, I don't know.
You made me think this morning.
Oh, brain, that's hard. That's hard on a Saturday.
Man, Saturday morning too. Oh, I'm supposed to
Saturday
be watching
morning.
cartoons right now.
I really do. I really do think it has to do with the character. And so, if you know what your character is like and what their faith is or isn't, then it's easy to write it because you know how they're going to react in a given situation. Like I know how Airfoil Brandon, for example, how he's going to react to a situation versus how Mercury's going to react based on Brandon's faith and on Mercury's lack thereof, or inklings of it, or whatever you want to call it.
Yeah.
But which makes it all the more fun then when you start putting the characters together because then they interact with each other. And you've got one guy who has a very serious tone about him, and the other one who's just like, whatever.
Yeah. All right. Well, thank you. I know that question came out of the blue, but
That's okay. I don't mind those.
all right, Aaron, you're up.
Uh oh. Next question on the list here is what's up next for you? A sequel to something? More collaboration stuff?
That's up next.
Ooh,
The next
preview.
Mercury book, Mercury with style, complete with ice cream bowl and spoon. That's the important part.
I know that it was really cool seeing that first look when you shared that on Facebook a few weeks ago.
Yeah, I was really excited. I mean, everybody here has talked about Kirk DuPont. He's just a genius when it comes to that stuff. But, and I don't know what other authors' experiences with him are, but just from working with him on various covers, he's really good about if you've got ideas for how you want to lay things out. He's really good about working with you on those. And you can sketch goofy things like a guy getting thrown through a window while he's reaching for his ice cream as the monster comes after him, and he'll turn that into something, that looks 1,000 times better than what you could do on a napkin with a pen or something like that.
Is that actually in the book?
Oh yeah.
Reaching for ice cream as they're thrown through a window. Priorities.
Hold on, we'll do this right here then.
Ooh.
We'll go to the first line of the book.
Yes.
So the first line of the book is, I was lounging on the deck licking pineapple ice cream from a spoon as the sun rose on the Pacific coast when the astral fiend smashed through the sliding glass door. Good thing I never vacationed unarmed.
That's a great opening.
So that's where he is.
And we can pre-order that, right?
Yep, you can. The pre-order's up now until Black Friday, November 26th, I think is the date.
Yep.
And it just continues Mercury's ever more zanier adventures, which is the most challenging part of writing the series, is trying to find something zanier to top what's already happened. So I'm kind of like, okay, I've got a giant floating fireball creature that came from another dimension. I need to top that somehow. So,
well, I just downloaded the first one to my Kobo, so
Sweet.
I'll be getting that read hopefully pretty soon if life calms down
Awesome.
enough that I can actually read
And
again.
we would totally toss a preview link up on the screen right now if we knew how to do that, which we don't.
Yes.
So,
Um, so
so
go ahead,
go ahead,
Liberty.
Josh. So, Steve, what is your process like when you write? Do you lock yourself away in an office, or do you surround yourself with family?
Yes.
Apparently, he eats ice cream and fends off interdimensional demons or something.
I've kind of tried to make it so that I could write anywhere, anytime. So we'll be on a road trip sometimes, and my wife will be driving, and I'll write for a while before we listen to an audiobook, so the rest of the car is not bored too. So I'll write like that. Other times I'll sit out on the couch while we're watching TV together, and she's knitting, and I'm sort of writing. It depends on the show. Sometimes the show I can tune it out, and other times I'm like, oh no, it's bird notice. Wait, Fiona's going to blow something up again. Hang on.
Yeah.
Yes.
Oh,
Or
Bruce
Michael's
Campbell's
going
on
to do
the
it.
screen. Gotta pay attention now.
Right, exactly.
Something zany's going to happen.
Charles Finley here for you again. But then other times, if I'm on my lunch break or something, or if I'm home in the morning by myself, then I'll, put on some headphones and try to just zone out and do that. So it really kind of depends on where I am and also what kind of project I'm working on. And a lot of times actually it depends on what other things are going on in life. When I can do that kind of thing. So it's a very haphazard process, I guess is the best way to put it, which is probably why it works pretty well when I'm working on the Mercury books, because they're pretty haphazard too, I think. I feel like. I do try to do more and more outlining than I used to. Like at first I didn't do a ton of outlining, but nowadays when I'm getting into a project, I really need to have at the very least a chapter by chapter, maybe a sentence or two for each chapter. This is what's going to happen. And if there's a key point where like somebody gets blown up or something gets discovered or whatever, then I need to make a note about that. But it's usually never more than like a sentence or two, or at least, sentence fragments, a couple bullet points for the chapter, depending on how it's broken up. Because sometimes I'll have a couple sections in a chapter where I'll need to establish a few things, so I'll mark those down. Or it could just be like, by the end of the chapter, X needs to happen. So then I'll just kind of mark that off too. Yeah.
It seems to me, just in my own experience and interviewing different people, it seems like most pantsers, kind of the more experience they get, kind of trend toward being kind of a hybrid style author.
Yeah, I think you're right. I mean, I'm definitely not a really in-depth outline person just because I get along in a book and I'm like, "Ooh, I want this cool thing to happen." Well, that cool thing might not be part of the plot originally. I'm like, "Well, then you have to change the plot so the cool thing can happen. It still makes sense." Like, okay, we can work on that.
Yeah, I've found that I've started off straight pantser. I make signposts now, like you were kind of like you were talking
Yeah.
about. I kind of want to know where I'm headed in a general sense, at least.
Yeah. And I do find myself having to sometimes veer back towards those signposts you were talking about. Like, I'm getting a little far off here.
Oh,
We
squirrel!
need to get back on track. Yeah, a lot of squirrels sometimes. It's not good. Not good.
Yeah, squirrels, and apparently I'm a Labrador Retriever. Gotta go get that squirrel.
Yeah.
That makes sense.
Is there an abandoned project that you've ever thought about going back to?
Oh
Of
golly.
course there is, but he's not going to admit it. Huh?
No, I was just laughing because Josh used the singular for that instead of
Yeah,
plural.
yeah,
Uh,
one. Yeah.
There's
fair.
multiple. There's just like bodies strewn everywhere of partially written manuscripts or ideas somewhere. Let's see. What do I got here? So there's a third one of the Bloodheart fantasy books that's got like a part of a beginning prologue to it and a whole bunch of notes and details for and world building stuff. There's that. There's a half written sequel to Man Behind the Wheel that just kind of wasn't tracking for me and either needs to be scrapped or rewritten. So there's that. What else was there? I did have a partial, another prologue beginning to if I ever wanted to do another for us humans. One that I did with Enclave. If I want to do another one of those, there's a part of that too. What else is there? There's all kinds of stuff.
Oh, good. It's
There
not
was
just
good.
me.
No, it is definitely not. There's a old, first third of a Sark Brothers book from way back in the day that is probably going to have to be eventually reborn as like their kids because it's been so long since I've been in that story world that if I ever did it, it'd have to be like his grown-up children or something. So there's that, there is more along the lines of what could actually happen. A book series that's planned, and the first book is partially written in the Face of the Deep universe that I want to go to. Eventually, want to pitch to Steve and Enclave again, with a different kind of feel to it. So that's more of a realistic. This is probably going to happen, versus the other 4 or 5 bodies that are in the closet there, or whatever you want to call them.
Slowly decomposing.
So yeah, slowly decomposing. Yeah,
That's a good way to put it.
Yeah.
So I have another question that is kind of off the top of my head.
Uh-oh.
Sure.
You are both traditionally published and hybrid published, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
How have you made that work for your writing career?
It hasn't really been planned because I don't tend to plan things. I know a lot of people have work up either a business or a writing plan. I don't tend to do that because if you told me 2 years ago that I would be co-writing a military sci-fi series with somebody, I'm like, oh yeah, no, I'll be sticking with my own stuff. So I tend to surprise myself that way. Past me and future me would have really fun conversations about things. When it comes to be like, what do you know? Anyway, I think it's worked out pretty well, mostly just because the publishers that I've worked with are really lenient about if I'm off doing something else, they don't mind that. As an example, when I did those Vincent Chen novellas, those are a continuation of the Face of the Deep series. I mean, they're officially canon, I guess you could say. But at the time, Enclave Publishing wasn't, and I don't believe they still are doing novella-length things. So when I had those ideas, I said, hey, look, Steve, I've got this one. I really want to continue the series, but it is Face of the Deep, and you're publishing that one. So I don't want to step on any toes. So if you want to, I'm offering this to you if you want to publish it. So, and he appreciated that, and he's like, we're not doing that. But his take on it, and I agreed with him, was that, by me promoting those, then it points people back to the Face of the Deep, and them promoting the Face of the Deep also points them toward those series. So it works in tandem pretty well, I think.
It's nice the publisher agrees with you and all. Work with you on stuff like that, though.
Yeah, because I've
heard some
really
horror stories about other people
trying
to do that and whatnot.
Well, and I've heard horror stories just of publishers in general, either be they big or small or middle of the road. So, I've been fortunate that way that it's worked out pretty well, that hasn't been an issue. And I haven't really looked, I've kind of veered a little bit away from the traditional publishing route. That's not to say I might not try it again at some point, because, I haven't done romance. So that's a genre I haven't done.
There's room. Yeah.
So. Usually, romance readers do prefer to have that female pseudonym. So
I can work on that.
You could be Stephanie Rzasa.
I was going to say there's a lot of Stephanies out there already, but I can make it work somehow. Or I could just do what everybody else does and do the initials, SJ something or other.
There you go. Yeah. So
that'd be kind of funny.
It would. So before we let you go, where can we find you on the web?
All my books and stuff are at home at steverazza.com. And then I'm on Facebook under that name, and the Instagram is Steve Razza Writer think. Pretty sure.
And for people
Pretty sure that's what it is.
listening, Razza is Rzasa.
Oh, yes, thank you for that. I always forget about that part.
Funny name. I
Like,
have a funny name too, so I
all
have
right,
to
so you
spell it out.
probably you gotta. Yeah, I'm just double checking here. Yes, Steve Razza Writer on Instagram. That's the one. And mostly these days it's pictures. I've been doing the Inktober challenge thing
with
for
the whole
October
Star
because
Trek theme.
yeah, the Next Generation stuff. So I've been
Which has been
enjoying.
real fun to see that pop up in my feed.
Thanks. It's been really fun to do, especially as I get less and less serious because the theme, because I was following their prompts, and as I'm following the prompts, I'm like, oh, this is good. It's like, you can use this one for like opening into space or this one for like an emergency. And then I get down there and one of the words is splat. I'm like, what am
And what you do is you basically like have red scribbles with a com badge over top of it.
I right?
Well, that one was
Well,
easy.
I wound up doing the guy taking the cake to like Captain Day on whatever ship he was and then dropping it. So
Yep.
so yeah, it's been entertaining that way.
Yeah.
Every once in a
That
while,
has
I
been
remember to
fun.
do book-related things on Instagram. So that's always
But you're
good.
building your brand by throwing that other stuff out there. So
Yeah, the brand seems to be weird right now, so we'll just go with that. Keep that up. Yep.
Nothing wrong with that.
so,
Nah, it's good.
so
Well, we appreciate you being on the show with us today, and hopefully our listeners will go check out your books.
Thanks for having me again. Yeah, it was fun. Enjoyed it.
All right, before I hit the magic stop button, I think we should give kind of everybody an update because it's been a long time since our last.
Yeah. Long
Obviously,
time.
we all still lived, and I don't know. I ran all. I got awfully close to running out of toilet paper. Anybody else? Since
Nah.
it was close.
No toilet paper yet.
I got plenty now.
We're
good. What I've been up to in the meantime is a lot of Eternal has been re-released as a serial on my website at aarondemott.com, and I've actually releasing new chapters now. So, anybody else?
Awesome.
And what have Liberty and Josh been up to in the meantime since the last show?
Josh?
Probably a lot of stuff.
You go first.
So I have a decomposing body of my own in the closet, and I'm taking my writing in a different direction. There will be more news on that coming
The other
forward.
direction is west.
Yes. But yeah, just been doing that and helping these two yahoos with getting the show back up and doing real life stuff. So, but yeah, look to see more on what's coming soon.
As for me, life has been nice this year. So it's been nothing short of crazy time. This year, I've done very little writing, though I do have a cozy mystery series set in the town that I live nearby that I've been working on off and on. So I was hoping to actually get like the in this year, but yeah, life. So I'm hoping to actually finish at least one of the books next year. So I guess we'll see. And eventually I'll be getting back to my garbage.
So yeah, more shows, more stuff from all of us, assuming the world doesn't blow up again.
Yeah, I mean, who knows with all of
Fine.
those hardships off the coast of California.
So
Which actually dates this podcast if you're listening to this in the future.
I have a comment, but I'm going to not say it. So yeah, anyway.
They're just going to send all the cargo ships to Florida. It's super easy. I mean, you totally get there real quick. I mean,
Yeah,
Totally.
through the Panama Canal and everything, and have to pay the tariffs to China and all that good stuff.
All right, you're asking for it now. I don't. Why don't we just find them if they don't offload all their stuff?
Yeah.
So we will have you back on the show at some point, Steve. It was great having you. And coming up on our next podcast, we will be having a first-time visitor, and whose novel is, or their first novel is releasing soon. But we're going to leave a little mystery as to who that is.
Ooh.
So,
Ooh, we have a plan?
yes, we're professionals.
A little bit of one.
So thanks again, Steve.
Yes, thanks for having me. Yeah, it was a lot of fun. Enjoyed it.
Great. So have a good day, guys.
You too.
Outro.
All right, now I got to find the right button. Let's see. We'll click